Welcome to Share Talk, the only podcast where investors come first.
We're joined today on Share Talk by Thor Mining PLC. We've got Mick, the Executive Chairman. The company's listed on the Australian ASX and the London markets. THR is the ticker. Welcome to England, Mick.
Thanks very much, Alex. I had hoped you'd turn the wick up on the thermometer for us, but it's very cold here compared with back home.
Must be a bit of a culture shock, eh?
It is indeed, but I guess your weather will be starting to come good over the next few weeks from now.
I've got to ask you before we get into the interview. What are you doing in London?
A couple of things, I guess. Alex, I'm talking in a couple of forums later on this week. Proactive on Thursday night and another one tomorrow evening. And but I guess equally importantly, if you're listed in London, you do need to be you do need to be here to be available to investors and talk to people in the markets on a regular basis. So when I first joined Thor, I guess I was coming twice a year and gradually realised that wasn't nearly enough. So now I come, maybe 5 times a year, which I think is about the right level.
You'd also be back in London for the UK Investor Show on the 21st of April. Are you back for that?
I certainly plan to be there. I've paid the money, so I guess I'd better turn up. So yes, I'll be back again in somewhere around 4 weeks' time.
You're a busy guy. I've got about 4 or 5 questions for you. Is it okay if I put these to you?
Yeah, sure. Go for it, Alex. Looking forward to it.
Okay. You've decided to focus the company on 3 key projects. Why have you taken that view?
Alex, no decision's ever cast in stone forever, but I guess if an outstanding opportunity really does come up, we'll always look to see how we can take advantage of that. But to be honest, we have 3 what I believe are cracking projects. Molyhil, we believe should be in a position to get project finance sometime this year. PilotMountain, there's been a lot of discussion about them in the market about how good a project that is, and I cannot but endorse that. I think it's a hell of a good project, and our interest in the Kapunda copper project is, we think, really exciting. I guess we're at the stage now is. How many really exciting projects does a relatively small company need to be able and to do them well and turn those into things that create value for the investors? If we took on a whole bunch more, we would dilute our efforts, I think, on these core projects. We can't afford to do that. We would also have to go out and raise a bucket full of money to take on anything new of substance, whereas we believe that what we've got in front of us now, we can manage for the next 12 months or a little bit more without having to raise cash. And we think that's where we would like to be for a little while. But as I said, if something absolutely outstanding turns up, we'll always kick the tyres because you should do that.
That leads me on nicely to the next 3 questions. So the first one, tell us about the changes that have happened recently in the US over the last few months, and what difference and importance is that to PilotMountain?
Alex, the US Department of the Interior has confirmed the classification of tungsten as a strategic commodity for the United States. This is not the first time it has been called acknowledged as a strategic commodity. I'll admit, but it's great to see that they have confirmed it, and they are in a position where, with that acknowledgement that they really need that commodity and a regular supply of that commodity for their own internal needs, not just defence, although tungsten does have significant defence applications, but also as a commodity that for infrastructure work for generally. And there is no tungsten production or mine production in the US. The only domestic production in the US is from recycling of scrap, and that has a that has a limit about how much can be available. The second part of what's happening in the US just recently is the House Committee of one of the House Committees of Congress have really pushing to lower the barriers for regulatory approval for new mining projects, particularly for strategic commodities. Now, this has some distance to travel. It's anybody, as I understand it, any member of Congress can put a bill up, and it gets referred to one of these House committees, and that House committee can either completely ignore it, it can consider it and reject it, or, as in this case, they can consider it and then put it forward to full Congress, and so it will go through the legislative process, and to get from where it is now to be written into law is going to take a reasonable number of months, I suspect, but it is an acknowledgement that that in the US, projects that are considered to be important for the US, particularly in commodities that are considered to be critical, they need to accelerate the approval mechanism and make sure that those projects start getting developed sooner rather than later. Now, with PilotMountain, we, I guess, are in the box seat to take advantage of that. The resource we have at PilotMountain is of a significant size. I have previously stated that's the only JORC-compliant resource in the United States. That is correct, but I've since been advised there's a 43101 resource, which is the North American reporting standard for another mine or potential mine in Nevada. But my view is that even if both of those, both PilotMountain and this other project did get up, together we would only supply a very small fraction of the combined US requirement. So there's room for both of us and room for another half a dozen of us before the US thinks there's anything like enough domestic supply.
Kapunda copper resources clearly exceeds your expectations. Why?
Alex, we went into Kapunda knowing that the technology has a very, very good chance of working and producing a saleable copper project, because we'd done a little bit of work in advance on the deposit, on the mineralogy of the deposit, and on the work on the core, etc. We had reasonably good confidence that technically the project would work, but we had also had advice from some people who had worked on the project once or twice before about their view of the size of the resource, and that. And while we didn't tell the market what that advice was, because it was nowhere near to a standard that would allow us to release that information and not get into an awful lot of trouble with the regulator, but it was a much lower number. So we were expecting a number of around between 50 and 60,000 tonnes of contained copper. So when the resource came out from Tyraman at 119,000 tonnes, we were gobsmacked and absolutely delighted. The guy that did this work is extraordinarily diligent. His credentials are impeccable. He's very conservative, he and the people around him have absolutely no doubt that the quality of his work is outstanding. So we now have confidence that the resource is now well and truly at around the 119,000 tonne level. There is a high grade core there of at a slightly higher grade that is about just over 90,000 tonnes of contained copper. This could produce copper very cheaply because in situ recovery techniques are much cheaper than traditional mining, crushing, grinding, and then flotation or heap leaching. If it came to that, I expect this could produce copper very cheaply, and it's hard to speculate on at how much a year without having done all the work. But there's a 15 or so years worth of mining of copper at a very profitable level coming up in the next few years, I suspect.
It sounds like it's turned out a really good asset for you.
It has indeed. We spent a bit of time chasing this, Alex. I think the discussions on it went on for about 9 or 10 months before we actually inked the deal and advised the market. And during that time, we weren't idle. We spent a bit of time researching it. So we think it's a cracker. South Australia is very well endowed with copper projects. I think Australia is the 4th largest copper producer on the globe, and South Australia is the largest producer within Australia of copper, essentially on the back of 2 deposits. But there are lots and lots of small copper deposits in South Australia, and our partners in this venture haven't stopped looking, though they're still on the lookout for a couple more. But in the meantime, Kapunda is a cracker, and we think it's a very profitable little mining operation in the not too distant future.
That brings us nicely onto Molyhil, the tungsten project in Australia. What kind of mining life are you targeting? What will get you to your target?
Alex, we've just completed back in January an updated open cut ore reserve for Molyhil that gives it a 7-year life as an open pit mine. For the first time, we have been able to identify, with the assistance of the independent engineer who did the work, a reasonable number of blocks of ore outside of that open cut shell that would pass most tests for economically mining it from up via underground mechanisms, because underground mining is more expensive than open pit, and then also putting it through the mill. So we are now very confident of 7 years as an open cut mine, plus a life afterwards as an underground mine. The really exciting thing, perhaps that the market may not appreciate, is that we have not done a lot of drilling for depth extensions at Molyhil. We know the mineralisation continues for quite some time, but we've never done the work to establish a resource that would be amenable for underground mining subsequent to open cut, because to be honest, we didn't think it would quite get there. We now believe we can, and the life of Molyhil as an underground mine after 7 years or so as an open cut mine could go on for quite some time. But there is work to do on that, of course.
I'm going to ask this question
to get
Mick.
there.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so to make Molyhil work as an open cut mine and mining development, we're going through an upgrade on our capital and operating costs. The last time we did this, we said there was $40 million required to build the plant and commission the mine. There is some extra, a few $1 million extra by way of stuff that we would need to either lease or finance separately that you could for mining equipment and power generation gear, but they can be financed separately based on the value of that kit, and so we're looking for project finance of about $40 million. That work's being updated at the moment. We believe there are some savings, but we're not quite in a position to be able to say exactly what that final number will be. But we think we will now get change out of $40 million to build and commission this operation.
That was going to lead me on to the next question. If you're okay to answer this, what is your position at the moment, and does the large cash balance give you extra confidence moving forward?
Indeed, Alex. We've just released our interim accounts that said we had about £1.3 million in the bank. We've subsequent to that, we conducted a small placing with Metal Tiger, who are our largest shareholder, and there have been a few warrants exercised, and while cash continues to go out the door every month because you can't run a company for exactly nothing and make progress, we've now got about £1.6 million in the bank. That will last us right through the year. We've got work programs at Molyhil, at PilotMountain and at Kapunda, all of which need funding, as well as the cost of paying the insurance and the rental and the listing fees here in London and things of that nature. But that money, we believe, covers all of our budget for this year and takes us some distance into 2019 as well. To have sufficient cash to be able to plan what you would like to do with confidence is a tremendous position to be in, Alex. And we spent many years where we didn't have that confidence. It's nice to be able to do that. We're not going to squander this money. We're going to spend it wisely and add value to these projects as quickly and as effectively as we can. But it's nice being able to be in a position to be able to say this is what we'd like to do, and we have the means to be able to do that right now.
It's really good for an AIM listed company, and obviously on the ASX in Australia. It makes you in a strong position, to be honest, in going forward in 2018.
It does indeed, Alex. You know, the money won't last forever. We're not going to pretend that we'll get all the way through 2019 without having to raise some funds. But 2018 and the first part of 2019 are certainly covered.
Is your news flow going to continue as it has of late? In other words, will you continue to keep the markets informed?
We certainly will, Alex. There's news coming up on Molyhil in respect of the updated feasibility in the next little while. There's work going on at PilotMountain, and there's work going on at Kapunda. And we will keep the market informed as we go of all these things. I hope for a bit of unexpectedly good news along the way for investors, but I can't guarantee that, and I certainly can't guarantee the timing of that. But of the things we know about and the things that we've signalled to the market that are happening, there's a reasonable amount of news flow on that over the next few months, and we expect that will continue.
I'm going to say the assets you sat on, Mick, at the moment, where you've got Molyhil and PilotMountain. Obviously, I know you can't answer this, but people must be looking, surely. There must be other companies looking to see what your progress is and how you're coming across with your data.
Look, there is some interest out there, and yes, I'm not in a position to provide a lot of detail on that. What I can say is that I'm off to Japan and Korea early in April. The Northern Territory government takes groups of people with projects that happen to be in the Northern Territory to North Asia once a year. I'm off with that delegation, and we'll be hoping to press the case to a bunch of people in Korea and in Japan for Molyhil, and I guess also for PilotMountain at the same time.
Mick from Thor Mining, thank you very much once again for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Alex, thank you. Nice to talk to you again.
You have a good stay in London and make sure you keep the woolies on, thermal underwear.
I will indeed.
All right.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks very much, Mick.
Catch you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember to visit our website for more news and other podcasts at www.share-talk.com.